I can't believe that if I actually go on the Silksong Steam page, it says that it releases in 10 days. That is absolutely insane to me. Silksong's release date was announced, and I've realized I don't have anything to commemorate Silksong coming out. Like, I have a little knight, you know, but this is a Hollow Knight guy. I have a 3D printed version of the knight. I have a poster of the knight. I guess I have like a little Hornet card in the background, but it's like everything I own is Hollow Knight themed. I'm the Hollow Knight guy. All of my friends know me as the Hollow Knight person. Like, a friend bought me Hollow Knight on Switch, and I have 255 hours in it on Switch. After 255 hours on Switch, I basically decided, you know what would be great if I started speedrunning this game? And then I looked at my Steam page to see how much Hollow Knight I played through speedruns and randomizers and practicing for speedruns and any other shenanigans. I have 355 hours on Steam, which is a whole 100 hours more than I have on Switch. I have 600 hours in Hollow Knight total. I love this game. And I, like everyone else, have been waiting for the sequel for a long, long time. But the thing is I don't have a physical thing to commemorate it. Hornet was never necessarily my favorite character in Hollow Knight. She's a cool character. I'm happy that we get Silksong, but I don't own things related to her because she's just never was my dude, you know? But I think we need to, and in lieu of ordering a marketable plush of Hornet, let's turn Hornet into a marketable plush. I mean, it shouldn't be too hard. Even this plush of the knight doesn't have a lot of seams on it. It has like actually a crotch seam to give them a little bit of booty. But I don't think she needs that. She's practically a twig. I think this can just be 2 pieces of fabric sewn along the outside. And her mask is simpler than the knight's as well, because her mask is that shape instead. So I think it'll be a relatively easy pattern to make. And I have extra minky from putting together some plush dragons that I still have yet to make videos about. So in honor of Silksong, let's make ourselves a little Hornet, and it's going to be a good time. And it is a little after 4 p.m. on a Sunday. I have laundry to do. I have lunches to make for myself throughout the week. I still need to make dinner, but let's see how far I can get in making a little Hornet plush before my week starts and, you know, work consumes my life and I don't have the time nor the energy to make a silly little girl to go with my silly little fella. This is minky. This is really good material for making plushes out of. And I have black and white, so these should work great for her body and her mask. I'm probably going to get felt though for her eye. And then I happen to have this. It's a bit more orange, I think, than Hornet's outfit, but it's still a decent red. It should work fine. So the finished Hornet will have these 3 fabrics. This isn't minky, this is just felt, but considering that it's an outfit and not a part of her body, I think that's fine. So this will work. Is this the orange or is this the red that I got for Ball Guy? I don't think I have any of the Ball Guy fabric left. So I think this is the orange from my dragon, but it's red enough. It'll be fine. I will get to use some fabric that I already have on hand, which is the best for a craft project. Not having to buy more stuff, amazing. The first step in making the Hornet plush was to make a quick and dirty pattern that I could use. I originally started by sketching the body first, but I decided that was way too big. So I started this time with the head that size that I wanted, and then, cut that out. So I had something I could trace onto fabric, and then made the body after that so that, I wasn't making a plush that was ginormous. I originally was going to scale her to be the same size as the knight plush that I own, but then she would have been rather huge, and I was already working with scrap fabric, so I wanted to keep it rather simple. But that's what I did. I made these patterns, folded them in half, cutted them out so that she would be symmetrical, and that's what we ended up going with and transferring onto our fabric. When working with a fabric like minky or faux fur, it's important to figure out the pile direction. That's essentially which direction do you, can you pet the fabric and the fibers are moving along the correct way. And I wanted to make sure the pile on Hornet was going down her body, so I made sure that I had the fabric oriented that way before I started tracing out my pattern. I realized here I didn't actually need to trace this out a second time because I'm just going to layer these two pieces of fabric on top of each other anyway, but whatever. I did it, so we have footage of it. And then after I was done tracing them out, I cut them out, put these two halves of her body right sides together on top of each other, and pinned this all nice and tightly so that it wouldn't move while I'm sewing. Minky is a notoriously slippy fabric while you're sewing, so you want to make sure it's pinned rather tightly together. After we were done with the black part for her body, we do essentially the exact same thing with the white minky for her face. I trace that out onto the minky. It's a lot easier with lighter colors to trace them out. You can use basically anything, and I know this is going to be hidden inside the plush, so I'm not caring too much about the implement I'm using to trace it out. But once again, put the good sides together, have her pinned up all nice and tightly. I'm being very careful with this part to make sure that those horns, which are rather skinny, and will be a lot of the detail in the finished plush, I make sure that those are pinned really, really well together, because again, Minky does love to move around when you're sewing it. But with that piece completely pinned, I had both halves of Hornet's body at least, ready for the sewing machine. I was getting her sized up on the sewing machine, just debating whether I bothered to switch out my thread for all white and switch back to black, but I decided I don't care. I'm just going to sew her on this machine. I have a old sewing machine. This is a Singer 401A, which I believe is from the 70s. I inherited it from my grandmother, so but this machine, it's a beast. It can do a lot, even though it sounds not so great. Actually, the mechanical sounds don't sound too bad. It's the electric hum of an ancient motor that scares me every time I turn it on. But I just sew around the outlines that I made, being sure to put a couple stitches around her horns so that they stay firmly in place. You don't want the end of her horn to be unraveling, as well as this like valley in the middle of her head. So I'm sure to go over that a couple different times with the needle, just to make sure that those are very sturdy. But that's pretty simple. All there is to this was just going around the outline, taking out pins if they were getting in the way of my presser foot. And once I was done, I took her off, making sure to leave room so that I could stuff her later and turn her inside out, like God intended. And then it's just rinse and repeat with her body. It's exactly the same technique, a little bit more tedious because there's more turns in her body, but once again, just take it slow. Every time I need to turn, I'm not afraid to make sure the needle's down, pick the presser foot up, and turn the fabric if I need to do it that way. I'm also sure to leave a couple extra stitches at those tight points and valleys too. That does help to strengthen those areas when the piece has all been put together. But otherwise, this is a simple process. This is one of the best ways to make small plushes especially, or small plush pieces, is to just throw two pieces of fabric together. You don't cut it out with like a seam allowance in mind, and you just sew along essentially your final line that you want to sew. It makes it so that you're just drawing the same pattern out again, just with the sewing machine. It's really simple. It's really easy once you know your machine and know how to move it along a certain pattern. And as long as you leave a space for you to turn the plush inside out, then you're set, honestly. Now that the pattern's been sewn, now I'm just trimming off all of that excess fabric. And I am cutting just as close to the seam as I can without actually cutting the thread. This ensures that when I turn this inside out, that there's not going to be bulk that's going to get in the way of that. I'm being especially careful at the very tips of her, like fingers and toes, because those are the parts that you really want to be close to the seam when you're turning inside out. Just being very careful with this, taking my time with it, taking a couple passes with the scissors if I need to. And apologies for doing a lot of the turning inside out off camera, but I had to bring it close to my face to be able to see what I was doing at times. What I like to do when I'm turning really skinny things inside out is to make sure I have a pen or a pencil or something to help me get inside of the plush and push that fabric out. It is tedious, it is time consuming. There's probably some better ways to do it, especially if you have like good forceps and other tools. I hear if you have like a really a thick straw, that would also help. Like you have a thick straw and then you have another pencil or whatever pushing from the inside. It helps to form everything, but this is what I have. I'm working with what I got, and ultimately I do get her body flipped inside out, and that's the hard part. So once I do that, I repeat all of the same steps with her head, cutting insanely close to the seams, being very particular about this little valley and the points by the ends of her horns, because those are the problem areas once you turn this inside out. So now we go ahead and flip her. It's a little bit easier than the body because there's only two appendages essentially on her head. But these horns are still a little tricky with this scale. But we get her turned inside out and she looks great. And we get to see a little glimpse at that final plush shape, which is awesome. But she won't be deflated for long because now it is time for stuffing. Stuffing can take some trial and error if you're not used to it. If you put too much stuffing in at once, you'll end up with weird bunches of it and it won't get to the final, like the edges of her horns or the tips of her toes. So you have to be careful and only put in little bits of stuffing at a time. I had to go in a couple times and take out the stuffing and re-put it back in and things like that. But luckily it's not hard to undo while the plush is still open. But you just rinse and repeat that until the plush has the thickness that you like. I wanted her horns to be a little more stiff because they are horns after all. But that's essentially all there is to stuffing. If you add more, it'll be firmer. If you add less, it'll be more squishy. And we do the exact same thing for the body. And I'm once again using a pen to help me bring the stuffing all the way to her toes because I can't really reach in there with my fingers alone. And I'm just kind of like squeezing along the plush, almost like it's a bottle of toothpaste to bring all of that fluff to the bottom. It doesn't work quite as well as toothpaste because of all of the friction between the fiber fill and the minky, but yeah, it does a little bit. We just fill her up and slowly we see her start to take shape, which is very cool to see. Now that both halves are put together, I originally said I wanted to use felt for her eyes, but I did have a pack of safety eyes, so I wanted to see how they would look, and oh my goodness. Oh, she could be such a goober. And since I determined that goober was in fact a good look to go for, I did end up going with these safety eyes. The one stressful thing about safety eyes is you do have to essentially cut through the fabric in order to use them, and if you kind of have them placed in the wrong location, tough luck, you cut through the fabric. So I go ahead and I mark that up first, and I end up realizing I placed one of the eye holes like a bit lower than I want to, so I replace it, see what that looks like by placing the safety eyes on top, and then I go in with my scissors and snip through the fabric enough that the eye can fit through. And then from the inside, I will go in with the stoppers so that the eyes are then held firmly in place. I will say using safety eyes has really made my recent plushes feel they just feel a lot more professional. They remind me of, I don't know, Webkins. I had so many Webkins growing up, and they all had safety eyes. So it just makes me feel professional. Safety eyes and Minky, that's what you need to feel like you're actually making a marketable plush that can be sold somewhere. Now that the eyes are in, we can finish up the stuffing, make sure it's how we want it so that we can close her up. Okay, so this is just, we're just going to do a little ladder stitch. Essentially, all the ladder stitches is you put your needle through all the way on one half of the plush, and then you put it in through all the way on the other half, and then as you pull on the threads, those two sides will come close together, and it will essentially hide the seam as the fabric folds in on itself. It's really neat and a really important stitch to learn if you ever want to make plushes. Now she's all sewn up. The nice thing about sewing plushies, if the fabric actually has a bit of pile, you know, is that you can hide your knots in here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to, we're not gonna go through the seam because that would be too obvious. We're gonna go right up next to the seam, going like as shallow as we can. We're gonna make a knot. We're gonna make another knot because I don't trust my knots. Almost. Okay. And now you can put the needle through here. Come up, ow, don't poke yourself. Come up somewhere else in the head, like up here. And then you can cut this off, like pull it taut, cut it off, boop, and then move the stuffing, manipulate the stuffing back so that no one ever knows your crimes. And there you go. It's like you can't see the knot at all because the ending of the string is like inside of the fabric now. Yeah, not too shabby. Once the head is fully put together, it's just repeating the same process on the body, using a ladder stitch to close the opening in her neck. Once her body was all sewn up here, I started looking at how to attach her head to the body, and you do that once again with a ladder stitch, but you just attach the two different filled body parts to each other. And yes, I did move my lamp in on frame, but sorry about that for your viewing experience, but I had to see to be able to put her together, and I was already struggling to manhandle her into place for this to work, so my apologies for that. I went around her head twice, putting stitches around her twice so that her head was on there where I wanted it, nice and strong. It would be great if you could see it, but, you know, you get what you get. But now that her body's complete, I can go in and make her famous little skirt dress cape thing. So first I cut out the size of collar that I want. I cut out a strip of fabric and fold it in half, and then I determine how long I want her skirt to be, cut out that length, and see how I'm going to put these two together. I ultimately decide to pleat the fabric so that it has that effect of how her skirt is drawn in game. I have it pleated one way, and then I take the other half and I pleat it the opposite direction. I think there's multiple different ways to pleat or gather this to make an effective skirt for Hornet, but this is what I went with. It was a bit tedious, but I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm not someone who makes skirts or dresses normally, so it was my first time pleating anything, and I'm rather proud with how that turned out, all things considered. Though I ultimately was a bit confused about how the best way to actually attach the collar was and how to get it all sewn up and finished up. Oh my god, she's gonna look so good! Yeah, this is gonna work. The question is, how do I do this? I if I sew it on the machine, do I have red thread? I have orange. Because I guess I could... Oh, I remember how this works, I think. I watched enough videos about how to sew dresses and stuff. Like this. You follow me, camera guy? Yeah.
Keep doing this thing where I have to,
Okay, wait. This is the good side. This is the bad side. Wait, I want it on the... Yeah, I want this on the good side. This hurts my brain. How do seamstresses seam? This is the most insane thing I've ever done, by the way. Can my machine even sew through all of this? I don't know if I should trust it. If I should just do it by hand. Well, all of the balls are over here, so I don't think I'll break my needle if I just go down like this, because then... It's so many layers to go through at once, oh my god. I could just sew it by hand. I want to try it on the machine. Call me insane. This is like really thick. But I think I want to try it on the machine. Okay, if my...
Shiny Laleep, yo! Awesome! That's my Fossil Week find right there.
Shit.
Nice.
Congrats, Absol. Absol just got a shiny Laleep. Happy Fossil Week. Okay, so if I take this... Alright, I'm gonna see if my presser foot can handle this thickness. And if it can, then I think we're in business. I think we're just gonna do it on the freaking machine. And, is that a wise idea? Probably not. But it seems kind of fun. So I really want to try. So I took the skirt over to the machine and with some difficulty, mostly because I didn't give myself much of a seam allowance here. With some difficulty, I was able to get this to sew up the entire dress. I did miss a couple pleats sometimes, like they would slip on each other, so I went over those problem areas a couple times. A bit of trial and error, but everything gets hidden in the final product, so I'm not too upset about it, and it definitely saved time over hand sewing it. So I'm rather happy with it, even if I wasn't doing it the most proper way possible. Once it's all sewn up, I fold the collar over on itself and pin it in place, and I do sew the other side by hand in order to have a unseen seam, I guess, with my orange thread. So I did end up, I sewed part of it by hand, part of it by the machine, but I was happy to get the pleats firmly in place on the machine. I definitely think that was worth it. And sewing it by hand didn't take me terribly long. I just had to go across the length of the collar. Seeing the skirt come together was so satisfying, and considering how close it looked to the skirt in the game, I was so proud of myself and so proud of all of this work I've put into this Hornet so far and how quickly she was coming together. I started making plushes, I think I made a couple in high school, and I ramped up to some more complicated patterns when I was in college, and I must say, they used to take me so long to make, and mostly because I was hand sewing everything. I didn't have access to a sewing machine when I was in college. So now that I have my own sewing machine that I can use, plushes come together so quickly, and I'm always so insanely surprised every time I make one, and it makes me just want to make more and more. How the hell am I going to attach this? Maybe just a button? Maybe I'll just give her a button. I mean, that kind of works. This button was what I used for eyes in little Radiance plushies. This one was kind of like my prototype, but I made one a little bit after this for my college roommate, and I used, instead of embroidering, which I'm not good at, I used these buttons as the eyes, which looks even derpier, and I love that. So we're using Hollow Knight material on Hornet is not a bad thing. I think that's the plan here, is to sew on a Radiance button, and then we'll just go over it like that. Unless I have any other buttons. I don't don't think I do. Like, I have these ones that I had for making, Makasheen from, I mean, I guess it matches with the colors better if I did this one. This is for making Makasheen from Yuri on Ice. Specifically the little, like, tissue box holder version of him. Because at this point, I'm not going shopping for anything. There is no way. Unless I, like, go rummaging through my dress shirts. But this, see, that one's just a little bit bigger. But unless I go rummaging through my dress shirts, I don't want to find a smaller button. Honestly, I don't think a smaller button will work for this weird-ass fabric situation. Oh, we could even make it so the button is kind of hidden, I think. I think maybe we can manage that? Is that possible? Alright, step one, we'll sew on the Radiance button. Oh my god. Look at her. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. That is a hornet from Hollow Knight Silksong by Team Cherry. I made a hornet. It is 7:30. I started at 4. That took essentially no time. That's just like it took an evening to make a hornet. Say hi, hornet. She needs a needle. She says, to make said needle, I had some leftover fleece from my Radiance plushies, and I cut out the shape of a needle and traced that out and just followed the exact same process I made to make Hornet's mask and her body. Except this time I did actually cut that needle in half, so I have separately the blade and the part that the thread goes through, and I don't have the full process for the needle. It's just basically the exact same thing as the rest of the plush. Only difference being, once I was done with the needle, I ended up cutting out the center part of the needle and hand sewing it so that it is actually an eye of a needle and is hollow and looks like it can be threaded. But once both halves of the needle are done, I just stuff them and sew them together, and that's Hornet's prop complete, and she's pretty much done. I'm so happy with how everything comes together here at the end. And here she is. Oh my goodness, it is Jane Silksong herself, Hornet. I really love how she turned out. The needle's like a little jank, but I do not care. She can hold the needle in her lap. I currently just have it pinned to this hand because I wanted to be able to move the needle if I wanted to, if I want to put it on her back. Even though I don't think she holds it on her back like the knight does. I think she always has it in her hand. It's just that she would hold it like behind her body or in front of it. But yeah, this is the Hornet plush, which is like really not bad for an evening project. Like, it is currently about 9:30 and I stopped for dinner, so it's like maybe 4.5, 5 hours in total. And like a lot of that we're doing things that are kind of unnecessary. Like, I didn't need to make her a needle. I don't think I needed to really like pleat the skirt as nicely as I wanted to, but I really wanted her to have that. I put in a little button so I can take that off. But yeah, this is my little Hornet, and I'm really happy with her. She goes, she says all the Hornet things. I'm sure we're gonna have many more Hornet voice lines in Silksong. Plus canon things that she says, because she's not gonna be a silent protagonist, but we have her. Oh my goodness! I'm just, I couldn't be happier. She's just, she sit. She cross her leg. Let's see her without the coat so you can see just how cursed she looks without it. Oh no. Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. Yes, she definitely, she needs to be decent, I think. But I'm so happy with her, oh my goodness. So thank you all for coming with me on this journey to make my own little Hornet, my own little marketable plush of Hornet. I really had a lot of fun doing this, and for an evening project, this was so much fun. I'm so happy I was able to get this done. Like, the sun was still out while I was working on the needle. I was very happy with all of that. But if you want to make one of these yourself, feel free to like draft your own pattern, make a hornet head, whatever size you want, and hornet body. You don't have to make the skirt the same way I did. You could just make a collar and then have just as long as the skirt is longer and however it is gathered under the collar, it should look great, honestly. I am not someone who makes patterns professionally, so I wouldn't know how to do that. And plus, if I would make this a tried and true pattern, I would fix some things like the fact that her horns kind of pinched together. And I don't really have the time to go in and tweak that and write instructions and things like that. But if you want to make one for yourself and you do end up making it for yourself, like, let me know. I'm on Instagram, I'm technically on Twitter, even though I don't really post there much anymore. Blue Sky, I'm in most of the places, and if I'm not dragon_nix, I'm probably dragon-nix. So if you end up making a hornet of your own, tag me in it, I would love to see it. And if you would like to support me and the art that I do have a Ko-fi or Ko-fi or however you're supposed to pronounce it. And a couple of years ago, I made hornet emotes. And I think for the release of Silksong, I'm going to make those free, but you could tip if you really like those, like essentially set your own price for them. So if you're a streamer and you like Hollow Knight and you're excited for Silksong and you want hornet emotes of your own, you could feel free to download those if you would like. But otherwise, I think that's it for me. So I think that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you around. And I have no idea if I'm ever gonna show making another plush, but it's fun. So happy I got to share this with you all.